Folks, welcome to the Prepared Homestead. This is Travis. Thanks for stopping by and watch. Man, what a nice, pleasant change in the weather. Woke up this morning and it was about 57, 58 degrees, which is the first time in months that this air, man, I got a spider web all over me. Whew. This is the first time in months that we have been below 60. In fact, the norm on an overnight has been in the 70s and sometimes 80s, and humid and sticky. So even though I get up early and come out here and walk, it's still not very cool. But man, this morning it's kind of nice, a little chilly. Speaking of weather, I saw that the prediction is from the Farmer's Almanac and the National Weather Service is that the majority of the United States this year is going to experience a very harsh winter, which is not surprising considering all the things going on with the weather and, solar and all that kind of stuff. So, in other words, it may still be hot where you're at, but you better start prepping for winter, because it's a whole lot easier to cool off when it's hot than it is to warm up when it's cold, really cold. So start your preparations early for that. Saw yesterday, and this is a warning, a tip, just passing on some information. Yesterday, the FBI director was asked by a reporter about this whole, Trump Mar-a-Lago thing, and he just pretty much acted like he didn't even hear it, just kind of ignored the question. But his response is that they are concerned with the threats. There's a bunch of spider webs today through here. That they are concerned of the threats that they are getting towards FBI agents from, Trump supporters, the right. And I know not all the conservatives fall into Trump supporters, but I don't think they see the difference. I think they just see conservative, right-leaning, traditional Trump supporter, everything all lumped into one. So that's why I'm doing it on here. And then this morning, the news was saying that, in fact, the FBI is actively monitoring the internet for threats towards agents because of this. So my advice is to be a little cautious about what you say. And I know in your mind what your definition is of a threat is one thing, and you may say, I'm not doing anything threatening. Well, we've learned quite a bit here lately about how that they use a completely different dictionary. And what they define as a threat is probably very different than what you define one as. So be cautious of your internet activity. Because of that, I firmly believe that they're just wanting to, it's just an all-out war against us at this point. And I've been talking about this for a year and a half, almost 2 years, that this is what they're doing and this is what their plan is. They know that the one thing that holds them back from fully enacting this Great Reset Agenda 2030 are the traditional conservative right. And so they're going to do everything to discredit us and bring us down and really destroy us. So just don't be foolish. On that note, I was thinking this morning when I got up, about what to talk about. I do that before I go to bed sometimes, or when I first get up. What do I talk about on my walk today? And there's tons of things to talk about, especially in the news. It's just more and more every day. But I have noticed in comments on my videos, other places online, emails to me, personal text messages, and even phone calls, that a lot of people, even very prepared people, very spiritually prepared people, are getting pretty worried about what's going on. There's this level of fear and even a little panic starting to sink in. And they're looking for just some kind of something positive, uplifting out of all this, because there's just so much negativity, so much evil, so much to be saddened about. And so I thought I'd try to find a silver lining in the cloud. Number one, and I say this all the time, especially those of you that are believers, we know how this story ends. So don't get too worked up over it. I mean, that's just plain and simple. There's also a silver lining in the cloud that while these people have lots and lots of money and power and all this resources that you and I could never dream of having, they're still human. They still make mistakes, and sometimes they're still wrong. So there's that. And you and I have the capability of withstanding just odds that would seem impossible to withstand. History is filled with this. And the biggest reason of that is because no matter, if they take away your wealth, your family, your possessions, hurt your life, everything, we have someone on our side that's far greater than all that. Father in heaven, no matter how much they have against us, he is greater than all of it. And if you don't know this, or I'm not quite sure, you need to pick up a Bible and read the story of Job. That's a good one. It's one of my favorites because it shows that no matter what we go through, no matter how terrible it is, and I assure you, the things that Job went through was far more terrible than what most everyone listening has gone through. It was horrific. And he did not lose faith because he knew no matter what he faced, the person that was on his side was far greater than anything that could happen. So that's also something that we should always be mindful of. Other positive things to think about is that there are more and more people waking up. As this happens, more and more people are waking up. We also are seeing that things are happening, and we know that what's going on more and more. It's out in the open more. We don't have to dig around for it. We see it. And so, there's less maybe anticipation to a certain extent because we know it's happening. We're not wondering if this is, going to happen a year from now, 6 years from now, 10 years from now. We know it's happening right now. And I think some of you are probably in the same boat as I, is just, rip the Band-Aid off. Let's get this going. Let's get the party started. Just go. But others, many of you, are probably not as prepared, and you're a little nervous about that, and you think, well, maybe it'll have got another 6 months or 12 months or something. And who knows? We don't know. You may have years for all any of us know. But we know that it's happening. It's not a big secret anymore. I mean, when there's people online, not online, but in the media, like mainstream liberal media, that's pointing out that, whether they're on or off the script, but they're pointing out that when the president says that inflation in July was 0%, and we realize it's not a gaffe because the White House backs that up, I start thinking that's crazy. There's mainstream people in the media that's saying the same thing. Mainstream, liberal media that's saying that, this raid on Mar-a-Lago is just over the line, regardless of what you think about Trump. This is a absolute abuse of power. So we know that there's some good there, in the sense that some people are starting to realize that it's happening, and that's a good signal for us to know, kind of give a timeline, because it's, and some of you may be experiencing this. You're diagnosed with a terminal illness, and you know what the end is. You just want to know how much time you have left, and that gives you some comfort so that you can plan and adjust your life accordingly. And so that's kind of the same thing here, is the more that we see these things happen, we are able to adjust our lives accordingly, because we get an idea of how much closer we are to what's going on. And there's a lot going on. The bottom line is that as much as it's part of that natural human instinct for us to, kind of lose it a little bit, kind of allow that fear to slip in, the worries for our family. And then there's also that heartbreak kind of, where it's not so much that you're in love with America, it's that you're in love with your family, maybe your children or grandchildren, and you realize that they're not going to grow up in the same world that you did. They're not going to experience the same level of peace and happiness. That their childhood may be very, very bad. I mean, they may go through and see things as a child that you never saw. So we have to be aware of that, and it is taking its effect on us. But we have to be focused in knowing that we're ready as best as we can. And some of you may say, yeah, but I've only been prepping and I've only been awake about all this for 6 months. Well, you're 6 months ahead of someone that's just coming out of the cave today. So be thankful of that. Be thankful that you've had 6 months. Now, maybe you didn't have 6 or 10 years. But 6 months is better than most. I'm not going to tell you that this battle, this physical battle that we're in, is winnable. Because to be honest with you, the odds are way definitely against us. Hello, little spider. Whew, more spider webs. My goodness, that's a big one. The odds are definitely against us. And I know you might be saying, I thought this was a pep talk. It's a pep talk and you're telling us that the odds are against us. We're all going to fail. That's possible. In fact, it's likely. But there is that chance that many of us will survive. That many of us will prevail against this. And even if we may not defeat the enemy in the physical world, sometimes we can win enough battles for ourselves to, make life pretty good here while we're here. And so the biggest point is don't let this wear on you that much. It's tough, yes. And it's getting tougher and it's getting worse. But we also have to put things into perspective. Americans have had it really, really, really good for all of our lives, all of our parents' and grandparents' lives. In fact, we've had it better than easily any civilization on this planet ever. And it's because of that ease and comfort that makes what we're going through seem just crazy and unwinnable and unsurvivable. But in other parts of the world, even before all this happened, they go through things on a daily basis way worse than this. Parts of Africa and China, and living conditions in India and other places. And so people there, they survive way worse than this all the time. I very often get emails from people that are listeners and they've grown up in communist Russia, or they grew up in communist Cuba or Romania, or they've lived in, grew up and lived in Bosnia, or these various places that in recent history, in the last few decades, have gone through horrific things. And they tell me about it. And of course, they tell me how they see America going down that same path. But the thing that kind of stands out to me is that they lived through that and they survived, which tells me that we can live through this and survive. I've always said this, and I'll stand by it. The greatest tool, the greatest weapon, the greatest prep that we can have, aside from the spiritual relationship with the Father and His Son, is your mental toughness. When I went through academy, was training, I've probably told this story before on here. One of my instructors, he was the hand-to-hand combat instructor, and he told us over and over again, he said, it's not about your skill. It's not about the weapons that you carry, whether you're on or off duty. It's not about that. It's about your mindset. He said, you can be trained and know how to use something, but if you don't have the survival instincts, that warrior mindset, you're going to fail. And so with everything that we're going through, you may not have the preps, you may not be in the location, you may have very little when it comes to physical preparedness, and you're just starting off, or you're elderly, or you're disabled, or you're that single mother, or whatever it is, you're poor. This is your greatest tool, folks. This is your greatest tool. And so everything else you do, the buckets of beans and rice, the bullets, everything else, that just adds to this. But this, folks, this is your primary tool. That's your primary weapon. And make sure that is what's in order, because you can do that today. You can get your mind in order and your mind prepped today, right now. It doesn't cost you anything. So definitely do that if above anything else other than spiritual. Because the stuff that they're doing now and the stuff that they're going to do, because I suspect and don't doubt at all that it's going to just increase and increase and increase. It's going to test your mind. It's going to test your psyche. And so you're going to need that more than anything. So with everything that's going on and everything that is going to happen, we can still prevail through this. We can still endure to the end. Don't give up and get downtrodden by what you see and you hear. Look up, keep a positive attitude, because we have a fighter on our side that's far greater than anything the left, the globalists, the evil satanic cabals, any of them. We have someone fighting for us that's greater than all of that. Folks, get your houses in order. Prepare yourselves mentally, physically, and most especially spiritually. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video.